Hey, this is great ambient noise. So I'm here with Matt Piedmonte, correct?
Yeah.
And you are a guy, and you came here and spoke last weekend during masses. I was in Naples at church doing something else, so I didn't get to see you. Why don't you tell me about what you do for Focus? Is that what Focus?
Yeah.
And like your role and maybe what the mission of Focus is. And
Yeah.
you don't have
So,
to talk to the camera. You can talk to me.
okay,
Just like
great.
we're having a conversation. The camera's not even there.
Yeah. So, I've been working for Focus, which is the Fellowship of Catholic University Students,
Okay.
for the last 2 years. I'll be going into my third year. And so, what Focus is essentially is an outreach program to college students. And how it works is we have teams of 4 missionaries, and we go and we work out of the local Catholic church or the Newman Center on the college campus. And how we reach the students is through genuine friendship. We just meet them where they are and invite them into a growing relationship with Christ and His church.
Okay. And why is that necessary? College students, I mean, they don't have any problems with faith or spirituality. They're all really stand up. I mean, we've seen the videos, right? But seriously, what's going on with the average college kid when they leave home and they've got this new life and all this freedom? Tell me about some of the issues that they face and why it's important to catch them before they fall into the abyss of their, philosophy class and their moral relativism and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it was something I mentioned in my talk, but 80% of Catholics who leave the faith do so by the age of 23. And I mean, we're in a battle for the hearts and minds and souls of young people. And I mean, it's just college has been a place that it's almost like a place where a lot of people are searching. And like you said, you mentioned the relativism, and you mentioned how, it's kind of under the guidance of the professors, and just what is being told to these people. What is being told to these young people who are trying to form their own opinions, trying to, really, gain a foothold for their life in a sense.
Yeah, and so, okay, so why is it important though? Like fundamentally, why is it important that they stay connected with their faith? I'm devil's advocate. Shouldn't they go explore other, ways to live life, without any sort of moral compass? Or, do you find in your research that, once people, tarnish themselves through the debauchery that happens a lot in college and, the Greek life scene, they're less likely to find their way back to God? Or is it the other way, where maybe they need to screw up a little bit and then they understand how important their faith is and being a decent human being generally?
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit there with just shouldn't I have this time to just be free and kind of live my life? And I think it comes down to the deepest yearning of our hearts is to be in a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, we're made for communion with Him. That's what we're made for. And He calls each and every one of us to be a saint in whatever walk of life we're in. And I think recognizing how when I was in college, I didn't really practice my faith. I went to church because my mom asked me to promise her that I would go to Mass on Sunday. Nice. And so I showed up on Sunday. And I fell into whatever the party scene, the culture. And I, by my senior year, I just felt like this emptiness. I was doing well in school. I had a good internship coming up, had good job, and just there was something missing. And
For sure.
yeah, and there was this emptiness, and that I couldn't fill with anything.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but prior to that, were you, in high school and prior to that, was it that you were really involved with, church and, exercising the values of your faith? And then college, did you go away? You went out of town to college, or did you stay around your family where there was a little bit of accountability? You said you're 27, so there was social media. Back when I was in school, it's they didn't know what was going on. Now there's a public record of your behavior online. So how, how was your experience prior to college? And then you said you fell away a little bit, and there was some emptiness. Do you find that sort of pattern with a lot of kids on campus these days?
Yeah, so I think that I was never very involved with my faith, but my family, I was raised to be a moral, ethical person, and went to church with my family on Sunday. But I was never even involved in a youth group or anything along those lines. I was never more involved than just Mass on Sunday. And so, what was the question though beyond that?
I kind of forget, but so let's get back to this focus in your program. So, like, what are you teaching the kids? Like, as far as you said, you're meeting them in friendship, but are you doing any kind of like apologetics? Are you saying like, hey, these 7 deadly sins, which is like Monday through Sunday for you people, like that's wrong and why it's wrong? I can barely talk to people that age in conversation about anything, let alone something as important as values-based living, right? So how do you broach that topic with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you mentioned how it starts with that friendship. But going off from there is building them up. We have one-on-one discipleship with the young men and women that we work with, and we build them up through that. And like you said, we touch on all those things. We talk to them. And the 3 virtues that we ask the students to practice that are in discipleship are sobriety, chastity, and excellence. And I think those are 3 things that you don't really see on the college campus that often. Yeah. And so build that up through Bible study. We have small group Bible studies where the young men and the young women are really in a place where they can have some accountability with the guys and the girls that they're in those studies with. And so
how much momentum have you gotten? And I'm sorry, I forgot what school you said you were at, and what schools where is Focus? Is it any public schools? Does it have to be like a Catholic kind of school, or what's the deal?
Yeah, so it's any public school. We're at some Catholic schools. We're at the University of Miami here in Florida, Florida Atlantic University, and we're also at University of Florida down in Florida. So,
cool.
Yeah.
So what kind of momentum? Like, how big are the groups, and what's your attendance like? Is it meetings every week, or are there activities?
Yeah, so in terms of meetings every week, there's nothing like for the entire group on a campus per se, but the way that we approach it is through this thing that we've coined spiritual multiplication. And so how that works is, say you have me reaching out to 3 students in particular, and I'm raising them up. I'm discipling those 3 students, those 3 men, and they may be in a Bible study that I lead. And so then the goal is to teach them how to lead their own studies, teach them how to share Jesus Christ with their friends. And then they can do the same exact thing. They'll reach out to 3 more, and each of them reach out to 3. And the goal is to reach the whole world.
Right.
So
as far as, people don't generally show up to college whole people and then fall apart their first week during rush, right? So usually they show up with some issues, you know what I mean? Like, people have, life, our culture, it's very crazy, just because a kid shows up to college doesn't necessarily mean they had the greatest parenting with a spiritual foundation. So do you teach kids like, hey, some of your ideas about life and living aren't exactly on point, and here's why? Or, if you are suffering from some form of spiritual sickness, like, porn addiction or lust, or they show up full-blown alcoholic, you know what I mean, which a lot of college kids do these days. Like, do you sort of remediate that and say, hey, like, why don't we figure out what's going on with you so you can, become a whole person, and then go out and live by example and do this multiplication thing? Or do you just kind of assume that if we study the Bible together, it's all going to be okay? I mean, do you confront people that have serious issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all broken in some manner.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think you see those things. You see the porn addiction. You see people who struggle being addicted to alcohol, and
Yeah.
and I think you see a lot of those things. But I think a lot of just breaching those subjects and those barriers are going back to that friendship that you have with them.
Yeah.
And also, like, those things will come up, I think, when you're becoming close friends with somebody.
Got it.
Yeah. And I think that's when you broach in. And your example of how you live too needs to be an example for them.
Yeah.
It needs to show them that, like, they don't need those things. That's
Right.
not what's going to fulfill them.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you talk about this friendship thing, are you talking about? So you work for Focus? You are employed by Focus,
Yeah.
and do you have like a team of like volunteers that you work with on the campus that are on the same page with the mission? And as far as like the friendship stuff goes, I mean, friendship is like a concept that's not, you can't fake it. It's got to be genuinely, organically sort of developed. So like, how do you go about developing friendships? Do you, meet for coffee once or twice a week, talk to people on the phone, be there for them? Because I mean, I know when I was in college, you're surrounded by other people like you, in my case, other heathens, right? But you feel alone, you know what I mean? You feel that loneliness because you know that people aren't, it's very transient. Oh, it's only going to be 4 years. And then, the closest thing I think people find to like friendship is like fraternities and sororities. And like, I wasn't doing that when I was in college. So it's like, how do you develop those friendships and make sure that they are on solid ground and, built on trust, etc.?
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head again with how friendships, or what are coined as friendships, are for the most part in colleges and just in our culture in general. And I think that what we do is just try to point to like somebody who genuinely wants the best for you. And it can't be limited to like a coffee date a week in a sense, and it has to be like, oh, who are the guys that you're going to go throw a baseball around with? Who are you going to like, little things like go to the grocery store with, like just like little things like that.
Yeah.
Who are you going to go on a hike with, go on like a weekend trip or something, like those things that where people really form bonds, and are really chasing after the same thing, chasing after Christ and chasing after going to heaven one day. Yeah.
So and I'm involved in some mentoring mentoring people and younger people in a way, and I consider myself friends with them and we're close. I know about what's going on in their lives, and like part of my role as that person is to like call them out when they're doing things wrong, you know what I mean? Especially when it comes to guys, like how they treat women and sexuality and that whole sort of spiritual pathology that is pervasive in our culture. Like I call them out on that. I'm like, hey, that's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta stop doing that for real. Are you able to like get through to them in that way? Because I mean, 18 years old, 19 years old, it's hard to talk to those people about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, like you said, you have to call people out. You have to call them out. I mean, if you call them your friend, you have to be able to call them out. And I mean, just like what you said, I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. Like,
yeah, but you do it.
I mean, I have to. I tried to. I have to do it. Or else I'm not loving them as I should, in a sense. So the way that you call out those young guys, I mean, that's loving them, you know?
Yeah.
And it's something that we have to do, I think.
That's good. So how big is Focus and how fast are you growing? Are you growing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started in 1998. And so we started at 1 or 2 campuses in 1998. And from there, we're now at 140 campuses. And so there's now over 600 missionaries.
That's good.
Yeah, and we've actually expanded into Austria, and this year we'll be going to Southampton in England.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just randomly those 2 places, or was there a reason for Austria and Southampton?
Yeah, so how it works, just a brief overarching, is how the bishops of the area will want to bring Focus in. And then they'll reach out to either the chaplain, or maybe the chaplain will reach out to the bishop in some way, and with the local bishop's approval, and then the chaplain on that college campus is how we go into a school, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're in Florida? Is that what you said? Or where are you right now?
So I'll be at the at Temple University in Philadelphia. I was at the University of Maine the last 2 years.
Okay. So not Florida. And so and you said you're only gonna be there for 2 years?
So how it works is each missionary makes an initial 2-year commitment.
Okay.
And then if you feel that God's calling you to continue on in the mission, you stay on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And so what do you guys just like advertise and then you give talks, or you do social media stuff? Like how do you get it off the ground?
In terms of like more missionaries coming on board, or in terms of
just like when you say you show up to a campus, do you live in a dorm?
some of us, I live in an apartment, so
Okay.
some campuses allow the missionaries to live in dorms.
Allow?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
allowed to live in a dorm? Well, thank you.
Yeah, so they allow it kind of, yeah. So they give, yeah, they let them stay in the dorms,
Okay.
which is pretty awesome. I mean, then they don't have to pay for an apartment in a
yeah.
sense, and
Yeah.
yeah,
You
so
don't have to pay me to live in a dorm, I think, these days. These are rough days.
yeah, absolutely.
And then, I mean, is there an established club? Like, what if it's brand new and you're just starting out? Like, how do you get that ball rolling?
Yeah, so, I mean, just the way that we did it at the University of Maine, let's say, for example, is there's the welcome weekend for freshmen. You're out there tabling at that.
Yeah.
You're out there just approaching people. You go out into the mall of campus, and
Yeah.
people are playing ultimate frisbee, and you go join them.
Right.
You know, it's just talking to people, just
Yeah.
going up to them, and I mean, that's kind of how you get it started.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right, I'm kind of running out of questions here. Do you want to tell me anything else that I'm not asking you about?
No, I mean, I think just the only thing to add would be that this is a time where students are really coming into their own, and I know I mentioned it, but I mean, these are the future leaders of our country.
When you say it like that, it's terrifying. Don't say it. Don't say that.
But I think there's hope, and I think that, yeah, there's a lot of problems with our culture. There's like a lot of issues facing the church in terms of, you know, this generation is not as active in their faith, but I think there's hope in terms of the growth that we've seen in Focus. Because it's not just Focus. You know, there's plenty of other missionary groups, or plenty of other outreach within the church, but I think that it comes down to, like, there are people who, everyone craves Christ. Everyone craves Jesus Christ. Everyone craves to know him. We have this emptiness. It's just maybe not clear to everyone what they actually want. And I think that in showing that how rapidly Focus has grown since 1998 is that people want to know Jesus. And I think that it's showing them hope. It's showing them what their life is made for. Yeah.
And I think community is extremely important. Like when you get older and you join a church, like the small groups are what really keep you connected and, you know, with other people, you know, because it's cliche, but you know, the whole, like, loneliness is the main characteristic of the typical depressed college kid who binge drinks and, you know, wants to drop out and ends up suffering in a lot of different ways. It's like, you know, they just don't have other people to share their lives with because, you know, they've either found themselves in sort of a vacuous kind of circle of people. And so that's what I think Formed is so good. It's a community, and it's people of, you know, like mind with values that actually, you know, want to be decent human beings. You know what I mean? So, all right. Well, thanks for talking to me. We good? We're done?
Yeah.
Okay. We covered a lot. I tried to ask a bunch of hardball questions. So, you know, this will probably end up as an article. Hopefully, if it does end up a video, I'll edit it and make us both sound smarter.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right.
I can sound smart.
All right, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Damon. I appreciate it. Yeah.